One of the most heartbreaking moments of the recent impeachment trial was when Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin, lead impeachment manager and grieving father, who recently lost his 25-year-old son to suicide, spoke of how his surviving daughter didn't want to return to the Capitol after she and Raskin had been trapped during the siege of December 6th, the day after Tommy Raskin's funeral. The increased suicide rate has been yet another devastating outcome of the pandemic, and Raskin's tribute to his son, while confronting the attempted violent overthrow of our government, was both courageous and gut-wrenching. This week, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pledged to give up meat during Lent in memory of Tommy Raskin. Jamie Raskin's son was fiercely concerned with animal rights, giving up meat and inspiring the rest of his family to do so as well. "Nobody in our family was a vegetarian, and now everybody is," said the congressman. So when AOC floated the idea with her House colleague, he suggested she'd have to do it the way Tommy would, which means bring people along with you. The result is that she tweeted to her 12.5 million followers, "Does anyone want to join me? Rules are 1, no judgment, 2, make it your own. You can go full 40 days, just Veggie Mondays, etc. And 3, be inclusive, no need to observe Lent to join." So here's my question. The Raskins are a Jewish family. AOC is Catholic, and Lent is a Christian practice. How do we feel about this religious Christian tribute in memory of a young Jewish man? Given the Raskins are clearly supportive, even encouraging, my own tendency is to say right on. What better way for a Catholic person looking to deepen her own faith through its holy season than to engage in a traditional Catholic rite? That this practice to give something up, particularly meat, aligns so elegantly with the values of a particular Jew whose final note to his parents read, "Please forgive me, my illness won today. Please look after each other, the animals, and the global poor for me." Well, that alignment of values only serves to underscore how religious devotion of various kinds can make common cause around shared concerns. Today at 4 o'clock, Ben Sachs and I will be leading the first of 4 monthly Shabbat afternoon reflections, marking the 20th anniversary of Dabru Emet, a Jewish statement on Christians and Christianity. The ICJS, whose convening gave birth to Dabru Emet, has been a stalwart Baltimore institution for decades now, and I have been privileged to serve on its board of trustees. I've frequently been drawn to interfaith work, but not necessarily in the ways many people are. If you've read things I've written or heard various things I've done online or on the radio or here in this very sanctuary, my chief concern is not the flattening of faith into a set of shared values, beliefs, or principles. Common ground, I've always felt, is to be found at the intersection of your ground and my ground. From my own childhood, where I was raised in a community of immigrants, and immigrant families especially, I've always cherished difference over sameness, constructive dissonance over tepid consonance. That's why I like AOC's proposal. Lent is her thing, not mine. Others may choose to explore vegetarianism over the next 40 days, and that's great. I live with 3 vegetarians. Some of my best friends are vegetarians. But here's the point. Beth Am's recently adopted mission, vision, and value statement includes the following sentence: "We seek ways to map our ancient texts and traditions onto the 21st century's most pressing challenges. In so doing, we seek the universal expression of particular Jewish ideals and values." Notice it does not say the particular expression of universal values. Pluralism is the celebration of plurality, of abundance, of diversity and difference. Just as the Midrash tells us that God created all human beings in the divine image, but with infinite variety and uniqueness. Jews and Christians, while our traditions intersect in several key ways, have markedly different perspectives on many things, including God, revelation, observance, the nature of sin, and more. Now, I don't know if Thomas Raskin gave up meat because of his Judaism, but I do know that vegetarianism is considered a virtuous Jewish lifestyle choice, since it was only after the flood that humans were permitted to eat meat. And even then, it was a compromise, not an optimal choice. I don't know if the Raskins kept kosher before giving up meat, but either way, if Ocasio-Cortez decided to keep kosher, or Shabbos, or check her suits for shatnez in memory of Tommy Raskin, that would feel strange. But discovering vegetarianism through her own religious convictions as a response to Raskin's values isn't the actualization of each member of another's community or another community's unique and ethical traditions worthy of celebration. Isn't that the fundamental difference between adaptation and appropriation? This week, I heard a lecture by Professors Amy Jill Levine and Mark Zvi Brettler on their recent book, The Bible with and Without Jesus, How Jews and Christians Read the Same Stories Differently. They made the point that the term Judeo-Christian overly simplifies the similarities between two unique faith traditions. Not to mention, it deliberately excludes Islam from claims about quote-unquote shared Western values. Levine, who teaches New Testament and Jewish studies at Vanderbilt, argued convincingly that the very arrangement of the books of the Tanakh versus the Christian Bible reveal their chief concerns. The Christian Old Testament ends with Malachi, which in turn ends with the following words: Hine anochi sholeach lechem et Eliyah hanavi lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'anora. Lo, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before the coming of the awesome, fearful day of the Lord. It's no coincidence that we Jews read these words on Shabbat Hagadol, the Shabbat before Pesach, just 5 weeks from now. Malachi is about redemption, the Messianic era. Christianity is like football, says Levine, consistently driving forward from the purported original sin of Genesis to the ultimate goal of salvation through Jesus. So it makes sense for them to place Malachi at the end of the story. Judaism, conversely, is like baseball. Our Bible ends not with Malachi, that's somewhere in the middle, but with Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles. Why? How does that book end? With a return to the land. Judaism has religious aspects, to be sure, but ours is a national project. We are first and foremost a people. So Torah concludes each year on Simchat Torah with us on the banks of the Jordan River, on the precipice of the Promised Land. Tanakh similarly ends with the return to Eretz Yisrael. Ko Amar Koresh Melech Paras. Thus said King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and has charged me with building him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Any one of you, of all his people, the Lord his God, be with him, and let him go up. Our Bible ends not with metaphysical redemption, but with aliyah. Like baseball, we Jews are always circling the bases, trying to get home. Today is Shabbat Zachor. As you know from Sasha's powerful Devar Torah, the Shabbat before Purim. Esther, Mordechai, and their story are central to the Jewish calendar, but you have to look closely to find it in the Catholic lectionary. Why? Because the story is not all that relevant to the Christian narrative. In fact, it may even detract from it. It's a story of attempted genocide and Jewish national survival in diaspora. As Levine and Brettler show, there's evidence both from Greek manuscripts and the Babylonian Talmud that Esther borrows language from Psalm 22. That's important because while the 22nd Psalm is surely part of our tradition and a powerful individual lament, for Christians it's central to their theology. In the Gospel of Mark, just before Jesus dies on the cross, the text reads, And at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani. What is this? It's the vernacular of Psalm 22, verse 2. Eli, Eli, lama azavtani. My God, why have you forsaken me? And from a Christian perspective, the verse that follows is key. When some of those standing near heard this, they said, listen, he's calling Elijah. Remember how the Christian version of the Old Testament ends, with Elijah and the implied salvation of Jesus. So the Christian tradition has a distinct and, I would say, polemical interest in claiming these words for the theological hero of their story, and not Esther, the national hero of our Purim tale. Now, these are examples of religious dissonance and particularism. Sometimes they're benign, other times, like in Christian texts that have been weaponized to great and terrible effect against Jewish communities, or conversely, Jewish sources that have been mobilized to dismiss or disparage Christians, they're somewhat less parov. But these are the concerns that swirled around those scholars, dozens of them, who 20 years ago put their names on a full-page New York Times rendition of Dabru Emet. That story, the story of how the statement came to be, the history of the Church and the Second Vatican Council that prompted its authorship, and the myriad ways the missive was celebrated and scorned both then and now, is the topic of the essays available on a rolling basis through the ICJS website. The essays are particularly short, 750 to 1,000 words. Even if you haven't read all of them, I hope you'll consider joining Dr. Sachs and me on Zoom this afternoon at 4 o'clock to share your perspective and engage in the sacred act of celebrating difference and the free exchange of ideas. Ben is the Jewish scholar from the Institute for Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies, which is what the ICJS stands for. He and his family are also Beth Am members. In future gatherings, we'll expect to welcome other ICJS voices as well as Rabbi Kelly Glutz's inclusion and participation and leadership. But your voices are really the most important. So join us for a distanced shalashudas, traditional Shabbat third meal. Grab a bottle of schnapps and a jar of herring. Come make conversation of holy difference on this, our holy day. Shabbat shalom.